Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most quietly extraordinary objects on the entire planet. Tucked away in a gallery at Oxford's Ashmolean Museum is this incredibly unassuming little piece of baked clay. It's called the Weld Blundell Prism. You could literally hold the whole thing in the palm of one hand. But this four-sided column, inscribed way back around 1800 BC, contains what the ancient Sumerian scribes considered to be the entire history of the world. And right at the very beginning of this history, way before the dawn of what we'd consider verifiable civilization, it throws a massive historical anomaly right in our faces. It's a puzzle that historians and archaeologists are still trying to unravel today. The text starts by describing a time before recorded history, laying out a succession of ancient cities. But when he gets to the second city, a place called Bad-tibira, the prism records an absolutely impossible claim. An unbroken bloodline of just 3 kings who ruled for a combined total of 108,000 years. That is nearly 250,000 years of history governed by just 3 guys in the pre-flood world. To put that in perspective, in our modern understanding of human evolution, 108,000 years ago, our ancestors were barely figuring out stone tools. Yet this prism records these massive, sprawling reigns with the exact same flat, bureaucratic precision as the historically verified kings that show up much later in the list.
So how in the world did 3 kings rule one city for 108,000 years? Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to treat this explainer like a detective investigation. We can't just wave our hands and dismiss these numbers as a simple mistake or some naive fairy tale, right? The ancient Sumerians were absolute masters of observation, mathematics, and complex administration. They didn't just invent numbers out of thin air. So we really have to ask, are these massive reigns pure mythological padding, some kind of advanced mathematical cipher, or maybe the hidden memory of an ancient historical epic?
Section 1. The 108,000-year mystery. The kings of Bad-tibira. Let's actually examine the raw data on these rulers. We have our 3 kings. The first, Inanna, ruled for 43,200 years. The second, Galana, clocked in at 28,800 years. I mean, imagine being stuck with the exact same administration for 400 centuries. But it's the third entry that really stops you in your tracks. Dumuzid the Shepherd, who supposedly ruled for 36,000 years. Now, Dumuzid isn't just a quirky ancient name, he is widely documented across dozens of other surviving Sumerian tablets as a literal god. He was the deity of vegetation, the changing of the seasons, and the consort of Inanna, the queen of heaven. His death and his annual return from the underworld were deeply mourned and celebrated in Sumerian rituals for thousands of years. And yet right here on the prism, he's listed simply as a pre-flood king without a single special explanation. It's written as if a god ruling for 36,000 years was just another ordinary administrative fact.
Section 2. The Base 60 Secret, Sumerian Mathematics.
To really understand why these kings ruled for 108,000 years, we have to stop looking at the numbers through a modern lens. You see, the Sumerians used a sexagesimal, or base 60 mathematical system. And fun fact, we actually still live inside their math every single day. Whenever you look at a clock to see 60 minutes in an hour or measure 360 degrees in a circle, you're doing Sumerian math. Now, in their system, the number 3600 was a massive conceptual anchor. They called it a sar. The sar meant totality, or the complete number, a figure that basically represented perfect cosmic order. Now think about what happens when we apply that logic here. If we take those totally impossible reigns and divide them by the Sumerian sar, that unit of 3600, the results are incredible. Galana's 43,200 years, that's exactly 12 sar. Galana's 28,800 years, exactly 8. Dumuzid's 36,000 years is exactly 10, and that grand total of 108,000 years is exactly 30 sar. There are absolutely no fractions, there are no remainders, it's flawless, and this brilliantly illustrates that these texts are for sure not random exaggerations or poetic hyperbole. The scribes were working within a highly calculated, deliberate mathematical framework to impose order on their deepest past.
Section 3. The Catastrophic Reset. The Great Boundary.
But here's the thing. This age of mathematical perfection, of immortal kings and massive numerical cycles, it doesn't slowly fade away. It comes to an abrupt, violent halt. Right after the final pre-flood king, the steady rhythm of the prism is totally interrupted by this single, chilling line. The flood swept over the land. Now, this wasn't just a seasonal river overflowing its banks. In the Sumerian record, the flood is an absolute civilizational boundary. The slate was wiped entirely clean. It was a total, systemic reset for the Mesopotamian world.
Following the flood, the text notes that kingship descended from heaven a second time, kicking off a brand new era. But clearly something had fundamentally broken. We start to see a phenomenon known as longevity decay. It's as if the divine quality of the kingship was suddenly diluted, resulting in an immediate biological crash in the recorded lengths of the reigns.
Tracing the timeline, we drop from those 30,000-plus year reigns of the pre-flood immortals straight down to transition kings in the newly rebuilt cities. These guys ruled for 1,200 or 900 years, which is, still completely impossible for a human, but it's significantly lower. Eventually, the reigns decline steadily until they reach completely normal human lifespans of 30 or 40. And here is where the friction really starts for historians. At the very end of this decay, we hit kings like Enma-Beregisi. His reign is totally normal, and what's crazy is that we have actually dug his physical artifacts out of the dirt. He was a real guy.
Section 4, 3 ways to decode. Making sense of the impossible.
So, the absolutely crucial question is this. How on earth do we reconcile historically verified real kings with rulers who reigned for 30,000 years when they are recorded on the exact same clay document? Well, scholars have debated this for over a century, and they've landed on 3 main academic frameworks: political propaganda, astronomical encoding, and preserved epic memory. Let's break these down one by one, because each of them shines a totally different light on how the ancient mind worked.
The first theory is political propaganda. Interestingly, the oldest known version of the Sumerian King List doesn't actually include the pre-flood section at all. So, scholars suggest that much later scribes, during a period of really intense political fragmentation, simply inserted these 108,000-year reigns to legitimize their own cosmic authority. Think about it. By adding an incredibly ancient, divine pre-flood lineage, a new upstart city-state could dilute the dominance of rival cities and claim that they, and they alone, possess the ultimate ancient mandate of heaven.
The second framework is astronomical encoding. Remember that base 60 math we talked about? Well, the numbers of the pre-flood reigns actually sync up remarkably well with the precession of the equinoxes. That's the 25,920-year cycle it takes for the Earth's axis to complete one full wobble. On this reading, the reigns aren't tracking human lifespans at all. Instead, the scribe was using the format of a royal chronicle as a highly sophisticated container. It was a way to preserve and transmit massive astronomical cycles and cosmic calendars across generations. Pretty brilliant, right? The third theory relies on a fascinating concept called euhemerism mythicism. This proposes that these massive numbers represent a preserved epoch memory. It's kind of like how we might say the Victorian era to condense decades of complex history into one single name. In this theory, the Sumerians were remembering a genuine, highly organized pre-flood civilization. But over time, they condensed entire eras, dynasties, or centuries of cultural memory into the names of single figureheads, like Dumuzid. The massive math simply reflects the massive scale of the era they were trying to remember.
Section 5. The legacy of Bad-tibira, the city of metalworkers.
Let's bring this whole thing back to our central anomaly, the city of Bad-tibira itself. The name literally translates to the city of the metalworkers. In antiquity, it was a place closely identified with early copper metallurgy and massive technological shifts, and this creates just an incredible juxtaposition. In the mythological record, Bad-tibira is the absolute cosmic center of the pre-flood world, holding the divine mandate for 108,000 years under shepherd gods. But in physical reality today, it's believed to be Tel al-Madana. That is a heavily looted, silent mound of dirt in southern Iraq, completely covered in vitrified brick that was literally fused together by extreme heat. And yet, this legendary site has never been fully, systematically excavated.
Which leaves us with one final, really profound thought. We have the Weld Blundell Prism sitting safely in Oxford, giving us a mathematically perfect 108,000-year blueprint of a lost world. But until a spade actually hits the dirt at Tel al-Mogjan, Bad-tibira remains a silent mystery. What ancient truths, what sweeping technological shifts, or what deeply buried historical memories are still waiting to be unearthed beneath all that vitrified clay? The prism has waited 4,000 years to tell us its story. Perhaps the dirt is just waiting for us to finally start digging.